The wind howled across the icy plains of Zephyra, whipping snow and shards of frozen rock into the air. In the shadow of a jagged cliff, a small figure huddled, trembling. Her scales were a soft silver, her wings folded tightly against her thin body. Lyra, the dragon girl, had not eaten in 2 days. Her mother had died defending her from alien hunters, and now she was alone. The cave she hid in offered some shelter, but the emptiness pressed down on her, and fear gnawed at her constantly. Her ears twitched at every sound. The wind, the shifting ice, even the faint hum of the planet itself made her jump. Lyra's violet eyes searched the horizon, hoping to see something familiar, but Zephyra offered nothing but frozen silence. She pressed her small claws to her chest and let out a soft whimper. A sudden hum broke the quiet. Lyra froze. The sound was different from the wind. It was steady, mechanical, and far too organized to be part of nature. She peeked around the cave's edge. A human ship had landed nearby, steam rising from its landing pads and lights blinking softly along its hull. Her heart raced. Could it be a friend? Or a new threat? She wanted to hide deeper, but something inside her nudged forward. She had no one left. The hunters could return at any moment. Perhaps this human might help. Carefully, she stepped out of her hiding place, wings brushing the cold air. The human appeared, stepping down from the ship. He was young, maybe not much older than Lyra herself would have been if she had grown among humans. His hair was dark and tousled, his uniform simple but functional. He looked around, scanning the ice and rock with alert eyes. Lyra's throat tightened. She had never seen a human up close. They were taller, slower, and strangely soft. And yet, something in his movements seemed gentle. He was not charging at her. He was just there. Hello. His voice was soft but clear, carrying over the icy wind. Lyra hesitated. She wanted to speak, but words felt foreign. Finally, a small, trembling voice escaped her lips. Human. Can you pretend to be my father today? The words hung in the air. Evan froze, surprised. He looked at the small dragon girl, her eyes wide with fear and hope all at once. He had not expected that. He knelt down slowly, keeping his hands visible, a gesture of peace. Pretend to be your father? He asked carefully. Lyra nodded, her small claws gripping her knees. Tears streaked her face, frozen in the wind. I don't have anyone, she whispered. Please, just today. Evan's heart tightened. He had seen humans lost in space, aliens hurt and scared, but never a child like this. She was small, fragile, and yet there was a fierce spark in her eyes. Without a word, he opened his arms slightly, letting her know he was not a threat. Lyra hesitated only a moment, then rushed forward, letting herself be lifted. She felt the warmth of his body, the steady heartbeat, and a sense of safety she hadn't known in months. The human carried her carefully toward the ship, adjusting her wings so they wouldn't scrape the ice. Inside, the ship was warm, filled with soft lights and a gentle hum of machinery. Lyra's eyes widened. She had never seen anything like this. Evan guided her to a small seat and offered her water and a simple meal. She sniffed it cautiously, then nibbled slowly, trusting the human enough to eat. They sat together in silence for a while. Evan watched her, studying the way she shivered, the way her small wings twitched, the way her tail curled around her legs. He understood that trust had to be earned slowly. You don't have to call me anything yet, he said softly. But I will help you. You won't be alone. Lyra blinked at him, unsure if she understood fully. But the warmth in his voice felt different from the cold and fear she had known. She curled closer to him, letting her head rest on his shoulder. For the first time in a long time she felt safe. Outside, the wind continued to howl. The ice stretched endlessly, a frozen ocean of danger. But inside the ship, Lyra felt a spark of hope. She could not know what the future held, whether the hunters would find her again or if she could ever feel truly safe. But for now, in this small moment, she had someone who cared. Evan adjusted her small body in his arms, careful not to hurt her fragile wings. We'll figure it out, he said almost to himself. Together. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling the gentle rise and fall of his chest, the warmth of his hands. Together, she whispered back, letting herself trust. The ship's lights blinked softly, casting long shadows across the cabin. The human and the dragon girl sat together, a small bond forming in the midst of a cold, uncaring universe. One of them was pretending to be a father, but perhaps, in time, the lines would blur and they would find something real. Outside, Zephyra remained a frozen wasteland, but inside the ship, a new warmth took root. And for Lyra, that warmth was enough to give her hope, even for just one day. The stars outside glittered cold and distant, but inside, the small dragon girl felt a light she had not known since her mother's death. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Thank you, Father." Evan's hand brushed gently against her scales. "You're welcome," he said, and in that moment, the bond between human and dragon began, fragile but strong enough to face whatever dangers the universe would send next. Evan adjusted the controls of his ship, the soft hum filling the cabin. Lyra sat on a small seat beside him, her wings still folded tightly, her eyes curious but cautious. She watched every movement he made, fascinated by the lights, buttons, and strange machines that seemed to control the ship. For the first time, she felt like she belonged somewhere, even if it was only a small corner on a human ship. "You need to eat more," Evan said softly, handing her a warm, soft meal. "You are too small and weak right now." Lyra sniffed it, then took a tiny bite. I am scared of eating too fast," she admitted. "I might choke or get sick." Evan smiled gently. "It's okay. Take your time. You are safe here." She chewed slowly, eyes never leaving him. She wanted to trust him, but trust was hard for someone who had lost everything. She remembered her mother, her warmth, her strength, and the day the hunters came. The memory made her shiver, but Evan's presence made her feel a little stronger. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. "I am not your child. You don't have to care." Evan looked at her, thoughtful. "Maybe I don't have to," he said honestly. "But I choose to. You are hurt, scared, and alone. No one deserves that, no matter who they are. And I think everyone can learn from kindness." Lyra tilted her head, unsure what he meant. "Kindness?" she repeated softly. "Yes," Evan said. "Being kind doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong in ways fighting cannot. You can help someone, protect someone, or even teach someone just by being kind." Lyra thought about that. She had seen cruelty. The hunters had no kindness. They took without care. Her mother had been kind to her, but that kindness had been lost in the fight. Evan's words were strange but comforting. She wanted to understand this human idea. Over the next few hours, Evan showed her small lessons. How to care for herself and others. How to keep calm in fear. How to notice small details, like the hum of a machine or the way a star twinkled differently when the wind moved. Lyra was a quick learner, her mind sharp, her senses keen. She began to see patterns in the ship, understanding the way Evan moved and why he made decisions. "You are learning fast," Evan said with a smile. "Most humans take years to notice these things." Lyra smiled back shyly. I want to learn. I want to be strong but not cruel." Evan nodded. "That is the right way." As they traveled through space, the ship's sensors picked up movement. "Aliens." Lyra's ears twitched and her tail stiffened. She remembered the hunters, remembered the fear, and felt her heart race. "They are tracking us," Evan said calmly. "We need to be careful." Lyra's claws dug into her seat. "Will they hurt me?" she whispered. "Maybe," Evan admitted, "but we will face them together. And we will be smart, not reckless. You will learn how to protect yourself, but you won't have to be cruel to do it." She nodded, trying to keep her fear under control. Evan taught her small moves to avoid danger, how to read the sensors, and how to anticipate the hunter's strategies. He never forced her to fight, only to be aware. Slowly she began to trust him more. At one point Lyra asked a strange question. "Father, what if I make mistakes?" Evan smiled a little softly. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do after. You learn, you try again, and you help others when you can. That is strength, not perfection." Lyra thought about her mother, about the hunters, and about herself. She had been too young, too scared, and too alone. But with Evan she felt a spark of hope. She wanted to try. She wanted to be strong and kind like he said. Days passed in a rhythm of learning, care, and small adventures inside the ship. Lyra explored the engine room, marveling at the glowing panels and moving parts. She followed Evan into the med bay, where he showed her simple healing techniques. She learned how to wrap small wounds, how to check if someone was breathing, and how to calm someone who was scared. One evening, while watching the stars through the observation window, Lyra whispered, "Father, I think I am learning." "You are," Evan said gently. "And you will keep learning. But remember, being kind is not weakness. It is the strongest thing you can be." Lyra felt warmth in her chest, a feeling she had almost forgotten. She had lost her mother, her home, and her trust in the universe. But now, with Evan, she felt like she had a small anchor in the chaos of space. She wanted to be brave, to protect others, and to show kindness even when it was hard. That night, she curled up in a small bed on the ship, her wings wrapped around her like a soft blanket. Evan stayed nearby, keeping watch. Outside, stars twinkled cold and distant, but inside the ship, warmth and light filled the space. Lyra dreamed not of fear but of hope. She dreamed of learning, of being brave, and of one day helping others as Evan helped her. And for the first time in a long time she felt like she could survive, not just with strength but with kindness. The universe outside was still dangerous, the hunters still tracking them somewhere in the distance. But inside the ship, a small dragon girl learned that care, patience and love could be as powerful as claws, fire, or wings. And as she slept, Evan whispered softly, "You are my daughter today and every day you need me to be. We face the stars together." Lyra's small hand brushed against his, a silent promise of trust. She was learning, she was growing, and she was not alone. The ship moved through the blackness of space, its engines humming steadily. Lyra sat near the observation window, staring at the stars, but her mind was not on the beauty outside. A shadow of memory had crept into her thoughts. The day the hunters came for her mother, the fire, the screams, and the sudden emptiness when her mother had fallen. Her chest tightened and she hugged her knees, wings trembling. Evan noticed her silence. He had learned to read her expressions, subtle as they were. "Lyra," he said softly, kneeling beside her, "what's wrong?" She shook her head, trying to push the memory away. "Nothing," she whispered, but her voice cracked. I'm scared." Evan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's okay to be scared," he said. "Fear is natural. What matters is what you do with it." Lyra looked at him, eyes wide. "I don't want to be afraid anymore." "You won't have to face it alone," Evan said. "We face it together. Always." Suddenly the ship's sensors beeped urgently. Red lights flashed. Evan's heart sank. "They've found us," he said quietly. Lyra's ears flattened. Her tail lashed anxiously. "The hunters?" she asked. "Yes," Evan said, keeping his voice calm. "They are close. But we can't run forever. We need to be smart, not reckless." The hunters' ships appeared on the scanner, sleek and dangerous, cutting through the black void. Evan maneuvered swiftly, weaving between asteroids, dodging the enemy fire. Lyra watched, amazed and terrified. Her claws gripped the edge of her seat. She felt the same fear she had felt the day her mother died. But Evan's calm presence steadied her. He guided her through the control panels, showing her small ways to help, adjusting sensors, monitoring the shields and predicting the hunters' movements. Lyra's sharp dragon instincts surprised even Evan. She noticed the smallest changes in the ship's signals, warning him of attacks before the sensors could. During a brief pause in the chase, Lyra leaned back, closing her eyes. Memories came flooding in. She saw her mother, fierce and gentle at the same time, protecting her with everything she had. Lyra had been too young to help, too small to fight, and she had felt useless. She had promised herself she would never feel that weak again. Evan noticed the change in her. "Lyra," he said softly, "I see you remembering. It's okay. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human, and dragon, strong." Lyra opened her eyes, her violet gaze meeting his. "Strong like you," she whispered. "Strong like anyone who chooses to keep going even when it's hard," Evan said. The hunters attacked again, cutting through the asteroid field in a coordinated strike. Lyra's wings twitched. Her scales bristled and her claws dug into her seat. She wanted to lash out, to fight like she had seen her mother do, but Evan's words echoed in her mind. Strength is not only in fire and claws, it is in choice and control. Evan called out calmly, giving instructions, and Lyra followed. She adjusted shields, learned to predict the enemy ship's movements, and helped Evan navigate the treacherous path. For the first time, she realized she could use her instincts without letting fear control her. "See," Evan said, smiling despite the tension. "You are learning. You are brave." Lyra swallowed hard. I am?" "Yes," he said. "And you are not alone. That makes all the difference." They finally found a narrow path through the asteroid belt, a risky shortcut that would allow them to escape. Lyra hesitated, fear threatening to freeze her, but Evan's hand brushed hers on the console. "Together," he said. Her claws pressed the controls. Wings fluttering, she guided the ship, instincts and lessons combined. The hunters followed, but the path was too narrow for all of them. One by one, their ships collided with asteroids or were forced to retreat. Lyra's heart pounded, but she felt a thrill of accomplishment. She had helped, not with brute force but with awareness and courage. After the escape, the ship glided through the quiet of space. Lyra slumped back, exhausted but proud. "We did it," she said, barely above a whisper. "Yes," Evan said, smiling at her. And you did more than survive. You faced your fear, remembered your mother, and chose to act with strength, not anger. That is bravery. Lyra's eyes welled up. I wanted to be strong, like her, like you. You are strong, Evan said softly. Stronger than you know. And you will keep growing. Fear will come, but it will not control you anymore. For a while they sat in silence, the quiet hum of the ship filling the space. Lyra's memories had been shadows, dark and heavy, but Evan's presence had turned them into lessons. She understood now that her past did not define her, it could guide her. You're my father today, right? She asked quietly, a small hopeful smile on her face. Yes, Evan said gently. And for as long as you need me to be. Lyra curled up in her seat, wings wrapped around her. Outside, the stars were cold and distant, but inside she felt warmth. She had faced the shadows of her past and had learned that courage was not about fighting alone. It was about trusting, learning, and acting with care. Evan adjusted the ship's course, keeping them on a safe path. The universe is dangerous, he said softly, but together we can face it. Lyra nodded, finally feeling a small sense of peace. She had feared the hunters, feared being weak, and feared being alone. But now she knew that she could be brave not just for herself but for those she cared about. And for the first time she believed that she could survive, truly survive, while keeping her heart kind. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship, cold and silent. But inside, a small dragon girl learned that her past, her fear, and her grief could become a guide, not a prison. And she knew that, with Evan by her side, she could face anything the universe sent her way. Evan adjusted the ship's course, keeping a careful eye on the scanners. The hunters were still out there, though far behind for now. Lyra sat beside him, wings folded but tense, tail flicking nervously. She had learned to trust Evan, but the fear of danger never fully left her. We cannot keep running forever, Evan said softly. They will come back. We have to face them one day. Lyra's ears twitched. Face them? She asked, voice small. I'm not ready. You never will be ready if you keep hiding, Evan said gently. But you will be strong enough because you've learned and you've grown. You know how to act with your mind and your heart. That is more important than fighting with fire alone. Lyra thought about her mother, about the hunters, and about everything she had survived. She shivered but nodded. Then, we face them together? Yes, Evan said. Together. He contacted other ships in the nearby sector, beings who had suffered under the same hunters. Some were small like Lyra, others were large and strong. All of them had been victims. Evan explained the plan, to stand together not as victims, but as a force that the hunters could not ignore. Lyra watched the humans and aliens gather on the screens, listening to the plan. She felt a mixture of fear and hope. She had never been part of something so important, so big. But Evan's voice, calm and steady, reminded her that she was not alone. You will help, Evan said, turning to her. Your instincts, your wings, your mind, you will guide us in ways they cannot expect. Lyra hesitated. But, I'm just a girl. I'm not strong like them. Strength is not always about size or firepower, Evan said. It is about knowing when to act, when to protect, and when to guide. You are ready. She nodded, swallowing hard. Fear still gnawed at her, but determination bloomed inside. She could do this. She would protect the people who trusted her, just as Evan protected her. The hunters appeared again, their ships cutting through space like knives. This time, Evan and Lyra were ready. They moved through an asteroid field, using the terrain to confuse the enemy. Lyra's sharp dragon senses spotted hidden paths and weak points. She guided Evan through narrow gaps, predicting the hunters' moves before the sensors could detect them. Good, Evan said, smiling. Exactly like that. Lyra's heart raced. She felt the old fear, but it no longer controlled her. She was part of a team, part of a plan, part of something bigger than herself. Her wings twitched, her claws gripped the console, and her mind worked with precision. They reached the center of the asteroid belt, where the hunters' ships were forced to slow down. Evan gave the signal, and the Allied ships launched their coordinated strike. Lyra's instructions helped guide them, avoiding collisions and maximizing their advantage. She realized she was no longer the small, scared dragon girl hiding in a cave. She was a protector, a guide, a part of the fight for justice. During the battle, one of the smaller Allied ships was cornered. Lyra's instincts kicked in. She guided it through a narrow gap, saving it from destruction. The crew of that ship cheered, and Lyra felt warmth spread through her chest. She had helped, truly helped, and no one had been cruel in the process. Evan's voice came over the comms. Lyra, steady. Focus. Use your mind, your instincts, not just your fire. We can win this without unnecessary harm. Lyra nodded. She directed the remaining ships, predicted the hunters' movements, and helped guide the final strike that forced the hunters to retreat. No one had been destroyed unnecessarily, and the hunters were left confused and defeated. When the battle ended, Lyra slumped in her seat, wings trembling but not from fear. Her heart pounded and tears welled in her eyes. We did it," she whispered. "Yes," Evan said, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "And you were amazing. You protected others, guided them, and acted with courage and care. That is true strength." Lyra's eyes shone. I protected them?" "You did," Evan said. "And you chose to protect instead of just fighting. That is what makes you brave." She leaned against him, feeling a warmth she had never known. For the first time she understood that bravery was not just about fire and claws, but about heart, mind, and choices. She had faced the hunter's shadow and had not let fear control her. She had protected, guided, and helped others. Later, when the battle reports were finished and the Allied ships moved to safer areas, Lyra looked at Evan. "Father, I think I understand now. Strength is being brave and caring at the same time." Evan smiled softly. "Exactly. You are learning quickly. And remember, you are never alone in that strength. We face the universe together." Lyra curled her wings around herself, feeling proud but also peaceful. She had faced shadows from the past, faced danger, and had chosen to protect instead of fight recklessly. She had chosen courage with kindness. And she had learned that the universe could be faced without fear if she had someone by her side to trust and guide her. Outside, stars glittered cold and distant, but inside the ship, warmth and light filled the cabin. Lyra finally understood that protection was a choice, and courage was more than fire and claws. She was ready to continue, ready to face whatever the universe would send next, and ready to do so with Evan by her side. For the first time since her mother's death, she felt whole, not just because she was alive, but because she had found someone to trust, someone who had helped her grow and someone she could call father. The hunters had retreated, but the lessons remained. Lyra knew she would face more challenges, but now she had a guide, a teacher, and a family. And that knowledge gave her hope that the stars, though dangerous and vast, were not impossible to face. Together Lyra and Evan sat, wings folded, hands steady, hearts brave, ready for whatever lay ahead. The universe outside the ship was quiet now, the stars shining cold and distant. Lyra sat by the observation window, wings folded around her small body. The hunters were gone, retreating into the dark void of space, defeated and humiliated. For the first time in a long while, the galaxy felt safe. But safety was not the only thing Lyra felt. She felt something new, belonging. Evan moved around the cabin, checking systems and supplies. He glanced at Lyra and smiled. "We did well today," he said gently. "Not because we fought the hunters, but because we protected others and did it with care. That is something to be proud of." Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes shining. I am proud," she said softly. "I never thought I could do something so big." "You were never small in what mattered," Evan said. "Size doesn't make someone strong. Heart does. You've learned that better than most." Lyra hugged her knees, thinking about everything she had experienced. She had been alone, scared, and hungry. She had lost her mother and had thought the universe had no place for her. But Evan had shown her that trust, care, and guidance could turn fear into courage. "Father," she said hesitantly, "will you stay with me, always?" Evan knelt beside her, smiling softly. "As long as you need me, Lyra. We are a family now, even if the universe is vast. We protect each other, we teach each other, and we care for each other. That is what family is." Lyra curled closer, feeling the warmth of his presence. "I like that," she whispered. I like having someone I can trust. I like having you." Outside, the ship drifted through the endless dark, a small island of light in the vastness of space. Other ships of the Alliance followed behind, moving carefully through the stars, each with their own stories of fear, courage, and hope. Lyra realized that humans, dragons, and other species could work together. They could survive not just with strength, but with understanding and care. Evan showed her how to maintain the ship, how to read star maps, and how to communicate with the allied species. Lyra absorbed it all, fascinated by the differences and similarities between beings. She taught Evan small things she remembered about her dragon world, about ways to sense danger, and how to be patient when emotions ran high. They learned from each other, each teaching the other something valuable. One evening Lyra looked at the stars and asked, "Father, Do you think there are more people like us out there? Alone, scared? Evan nodded. Yes, many. But that is why we act, why we protect, and why we teach. One small act of kindness can change a life, even a whole world. Lyra thought about the hunters, the allied ships, and her own journey. She realized that even a small dragon girl, guided by someone who cared, could make a difference. And she wanted to keep making a difference. She wanted to help, to teach, to protect. Days passed and the ship became a home. Lyra explored, practiced flying in the low-gravity training room, and learned to control her fire safely. She laughed, a soft, musical sound, as Evan guided her through small mistakes and celebrated her successes. The bond between them grew stronger. She no longer thought of him as just a helper. He was truly her father in heart. Other alien children began to hear of Lyra and her human father. Some came to seek guidance, hoping for the same safety, the same trust, the same lessons of courage and kindness. Lyra welcomed them cautiously, showing them what she had learned. Evan guided her, teaching her patience and leadership. Together they created a small community of learners, each one discovering that the universe could be faced with courage and care. Lyra realized something important. Being brave was not enough. Being kind, being patient, being willing to teach and protect. That was the true power. Humans had shown her that. Evan had shown her that. She felt grateful not just for his guidance but for the chance to be part of something bigger than herself. One quiet evening the ship floated near a small, green planet, untouched and beautiful. Lyra perched on the observation deck, wings stretched wide, looking at the horizon. Evan came and stood beside her, his hand brushing hers gently. "Father," she said softly, "thank you. For everything." "You're welcome, Lyra," Evan replied. "And remember, this is only the beginning. The universe is wide, but we have each other. That makes it less scary and much more wonderful." Lyra leaned against him, feeling the steady warmth of his body and the calm strength of his presence. She no longer felt alone. She no longer felt weak. She had courage, she had knowledge, and she had a family. Together they would explore the stars, face dangers, and protect those who could not protect themselves. Lyra would continue to grow, learning lessons of heart and mind, always guided by someone who cared. And Evan, in return, would learn from her instincts, her wisdom, and her fierce loyalty. The hunters were gone, the immediate danger passed, but Lyra knew the universe held more challenges. Still she was ready. She had a father, a teacher, and a friend. She had hope. As the sun of the distant planet rose, casting a golden glow across the ship's deck, Lyra spread her wings and breathed in deeply. "We can do this," she whispered. "Together." Evan smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Together?" he echoed. And in that moment, a small dragon girl and her human father looked out at the stars, not as victims of the universe, but as a family ready to face whatever came next. A family beyond worlds, beyond fear, beyond loneliness. They had each other, and that was enough to make them strong. Lyra smiled, a soft, happy sound that filled the cabin. "I am ready," she said. "I am brave. And I have you." "Yes," Evan said. "And that is all we need." Outside, the stars sparkled endlessly, cold but beautiful. Inside, warmth, courage, and trust filled the ship. And Lyra knew, finally, that she had found a place where she belonged, a family beyond worlds.